Alright, so welcome to Critical Thinking, the Plague Edition. We're all stuck inside and doing this online whether we want to or not. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and move on with Chapter 8 at this point, which is a very quick chapter that deals with the concept of the burden of proof. Put very simply, whether we're dealing with an argument that's being put forward or a court case or anything of the sort, the burden of proof is always going to fall on the person who's making the claim or the accusation. This is a pretty major issue, actually, because a lot of times people try to place the burden of proof on the wrong party, and we don't want to see that happen. The person who is making the claim, the person who is making the accusation, is the one who bears the burden of proof. The little image you see on the screen there is from the Trial of Galileo. And when Galileo was brought up on charges, it was because he was challenging the prevailing view of the universe. For a long time, we held the belief that the Earth was the center of the universe, the sun, the moon, the other stars all circled around it in perfect circular orbits. But Galileo, following in the footsteps of Copernicus and people like Giordano Bruno, they all argued that no, the sun is the center and that we are moving around it. Well, in essence, the view of Galileo is challenging the established view. He's making a new claim. He's making an accusation that what we've always believed is wrong, and here's something new. And so the burden of proof for this is actually going to fall upon Galileo. It's going to fall upon Copernicus. It's going to fall upon Bruno. It's going to fall upon all of these scientists who are trying to claim that the sun is the center of the universe because it's going against the prevailing and established view. So they are the ones who bear the burden of proof within the trial, and not just the trial in the sense of the ecclesiastical court that they're in front of here, but also in terms of the court of public opinion and worldview. And eventually, of course, they are going to be proven right, but it takes a long time. Actually, it's not until 1992 that the Catholic Church finally acknowledges Pope John Paul II, finally says Galileo was right, and we apologize for what we put him through. So we have to remember that the burden of proof always falls on the person making the claim or the accusation. And so when we look at the court of law, we need to remember here that a person is innocent until proven guilty. The prosecution must prove their guilt beyond a shadow of a doubt. The defendant, on the other hand, needs to only prove reasonable doubt. And that's why it's actually much easier for someone to take on the role of a defense attorney than it is the role of the prosecution. Because the prosecution has to come straight forward and prove definitively that this person has done the thing that you're claiming they've done. Whereas the defendant only has to show reasonable doubt, introduce an element of doubt, or to make people question what's happening. They don't actually have to prove their innocence. And so that's the thing. Within a court of law, a person has to be proven to be guilty. They don't have to prove that they are innocent, just that there is reason to question or doubt their innocence. And if we create a system that works contrary to that, it's going to produce a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties. There is, of course, as always, a fallacy associated with this idea that we need to look at. And this is a fallacy called the appeal to ignorance fallacy. The appeal to ignorance fallacy argues that since a claim has not been proven false, that it must be true, or that since it's not been proven to be true, that it must be false. Sometimes there are instances where we simply cannot prove it one way or the other. And so it's important for us to recognize that just because we haven't proven something one way doesn't mean that it's the other. Just because I've not proven it to be true doesn't necessarily mean that it's false. Just because it hasn't been proven to be false doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. We need proof one way or another. And so if we look at this little example here, it says people have been trying for centuries to prove that God exists, and every argument has failed. So clearly God does not exist. Well, here again, how many years have we had people trying to prove an atheistic viewpoint, trying to prove that God doesn't exist? Well, does that mean that since they haven't been able to prove he doesn't exist, that he does? Right? The argument can go either direction, and it doesn't prove anything one way or another. So that's what we mean by an appeal to ignorance fallacy. We're claiming that because we don't have definitive proof, that it gives us proof. And of course, that's not the way it works. It's not the way it's supposed to work. All right. So we want to take that into account anytime that we're working with these arguments and we're thinking about the burden of proof. We got to put the burden of proof on the right place. It belongs on the person who is making the claim, the extraordinary claim, the new claim, but the person that's making the claim, they have to prove it. And it has to actually be proven. You know, it can't be something that's commits this appeal to ignorance fallacy. All right? So that's pretty much all there is to this chapter. If you take a look around page 123, you'll see exercise 8-1. And there are some examples here in which we are supposed to read through these and decide where the burden of proof belongs. Right? Who is it that's making the claim? What is it that they have to prove? And so on. So let's just take a look at the first one here together. It says, I am proposing to place a new mouthwash on the market. The Food and Drug Administration requires that I provide extensive tests demonstrating the safety of the mouthwash. In reply, I give the following argument. It's not fair to require me to prove the safety of my new Merry Mouth mouthwash. If anyone has doubts about its safety of Merry Mouth, then that doubter should be required to offer proof that Merry Mouth is dangerous. I haven't made any claims about the safety of Merry Mouth, so why should I be asked for any proof? You're placing the burden of proof on the wrong back. The person who makes the claim, namely the claim that Merry Mouth is harmful, should have to prove that claim. Those who make the claim should provide the proof. All right. So this individual is arguing that he should not be required to prove that his new Merry Mouth mouthwash is not dangerous. But is that the correct place for the burden to be proven? No. You see, when a product is brought out onto the market, there's an inherent claim already made that that product is safe for human consumption, that it's safe for human usage. And so when complaints are being made that it is not, it's not that those people have to prove that point, but rather the owner of Merry Mouth is the one who made the initial claim that it is safe, and therefore he is required to be the one to prove the point. Okay? So that's the basic idea here, and I'm just going to let you try the rest of those on that page for homework. So 2 through 7 on page 124. Just basically read through there and say where the burden of proof lies. You will find a spot on Blackboard where you can upload your answers to the homework. If you're not comfortable with that or haven't figured out how to do it yet, feel free just to email them to me as well. Either way, you'll get credit for doing it. Okay. You probably will get a little more homework this way than we would have in class, because I tried to keep things down and work with you on stuff in class so that you didn't have quite so much to take home. But you know, now we have to do it this way, so you'll probably get a little bit more work from here on out. But hey, you're stuck at home anyway, nothing more to do. You may as well do a little bit of critical thinking. All right, so I will see you in the next video. Take care.